These notes are on graphing exponentials. I did not put them on your ticket, review sheet, or test for this week because I was not sure how many of you would have access to a graphing calculator, but we will go back over them when we come back, but I still wanted you to be introduced to them so you understand what they are. We graph them just like we graph any line. We have to have them in y equals form. Sometimes they will write f of x, but remember it is the same as y equals. We're actually going to put these all in Y1 in our graphing calculator in order to graph them and get a table for them. First, we'll press graph to see what it looks like, and then we'll press table and put down the specific points that we want. Only copy points that you can actually graph. You're going to notice we're going to have a lot of points that are decimals. We're not going to worry about those points. And then obviously connect your points and label your graph. So the first graph is f of x equals 2, and that's raised to the x as a power. So we're going to go to y equals in the graphing calculator. I'm going to do 2, and then remember, use your caret key to go to a power to the x. I'm going to hit graph so I can see my picture. And so that's what our exponential looks like. The big thing about exponentials that you need to understand is this line never actually touches that x-axis. It gets closer and closer and closer and closer to it, but it never actually touches. So now I'm going to hit second graph to see my table. I'm going to go up to see. Now if you notice, the higher I go up, the more decimals that I get. I'm going to start with the -1 and 0.5 because you can graph a half. It's just hard to graph any of those other decimals. The table you must show. It's just like stating your M and your B when we graph a line. It is your work for the graph. So I'm going to say -1 and 0.5, 0 and 1, 1, 2, 2, 4, and 3, 8. I really only want to copy down what will fit in a 10 by 10 window. I'm going to move the calculator. I'm going to move my paper over a bit so you guys can see the graph. Okay, so I'm going to go to -1 on my x-axis and up to 0.5, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is a line that goes on and on and on, so I'm going to have arrows. But remember, this doesn't actually touch the x-axis. It just gets closer and closer to it. And then you can either just label it y equals 2 to the x, or you can do f of x equals 2 to the x. So they're very easy to do if you have a graphing calculator, and I wasn't sure if you'd have them, so I didn't want to send you guys for any tricks while you're at home. So if we look at number 2 in the notes, it's 1/2 raised to the x. So I'm going to go back to y equals. I'm going to clear out the equation that's in there. You can either just do parenthesis 1 divided by 2, but I'm going to clear it and I'm going to practice using my alpha y equals and use my math button. 1, 2, do my parenthesis, arrow up to the x power, and I'm going to hit graph again. Here comes my graph. Again, it gets closer and closer and closer to that x-axis. It just doesn't actually touch it. So I'm going to hit second table, and I'm going to move this over, x, y. So notice this time I don't want to go any more in the negative direction that way. And if I keep going down, those are decimals or they would be fractions. Because I used my fraction tool, they're coming up as fractions instead of decimals. If you would have done 1 divided by 2 in the y equals screen, you would have gotten decimals there. I'm going to copy all the way down to 1, and we know 1/2 is 0.5. Okay, move my calculator out of the way. -1, 2, 3, +1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. -2, 1, 2, 3, 4. -1, 2, 0, 1, and 1 and 0.5. Again, it's a line that keeps going on and on. It gets closer to that x-axis, but it never actually touches it. Move that over so you can see the whole graph. If we look at number 3, you've got to be careful when typing number 3 in the calculator, because notice that -1 is not in the exponent, it's next to it. So I'm going to go back to y equals and clear out what's in there. I'm going to do 2 caret key to the x. Sorry, I'll move this up so you can see it. So let's start again. 2 caret key. Oh, I got to clear everything out. 2 caret key to the x. Now notice the cursor is still blinking in the exponent. Remember, arrow out and it'll bring it back down. Then I'm going to type in -1. Hit graph. So again, it does actually cross the x-axis this time, but this straight line, it's always getting closer and closer to that straight line, but never actually touching it. So I'm going to hit second table so I can get a table of values. 0.75 is going to be hard to graph. So again, we'll go down to that -0.5. So x, y, -1, -0.5, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, and 3, 7. I'm not going to go any higher because we won't see it in a 10 by 10 graph. Move my calculator. I'll move this over so you can see the graph better. -1, -0.5, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, connect these, but don't touch that line below it because it's getting closer and closer, but never touching. I label your equation. I did forget to do that in the problem above. So I will go back up and label that y equals 1/2 raised to the x. 2 more examples to go through. Number 4 has a negative. So when we go to our calculator, y equals, clear out what's in there. I'm going to type negative, remember, 2, and then raised to the x. Hit graph so we can see what our graph should look like when we do it. Again, it's getting closer and closer to that x-axis, but not touching it. Second table. Again, I'm going to start here wherever that 1/2 is, because 1/2 is easy to graph. X, y, -1, -0.5, 0, -1, 1, -2, 2, -4, and 3, -8. I'm going to move my calculator out of the way. -1, -0.5, 0, -1, 1, -2, 2, -1, 2, 3, 4, and 3, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, I'm going to get close to that line, but never touch it. And arrows on both ends. And label my equation. Now, in case you want to double check, bring your calculator back over, hit graph, and my equation does look like it does on the calculator. If it didn't, then you made a mistake plotting your points and just go back and check them. One more example. We got a couple little extra pieces here in this one. So when I put them in my calculator, I'm going to do y equals, clear out what's in there. Type it in exactly how you see it. So -2, parenthesis 2, raised to the x. Hit graph so we can see what our graph looks like. So it kind of looks like the last one we did. I'm sure it's not going to be exactly the same. Hit second table. So I'm going to start with that 0.5 point right there. So x, y, -2, -0.5, -1, -1, 0, -2, 1, -4, and 2, -8. So I'm going to move my graph out of the way, or my calculator, and come over here to graph. So -2, -0.5 is down here. -1, -1, 0, -2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Connect my points. And y equals -2 times 2 raised to the x.